Okay, let's start with our lesson. The first thing you want to do is make sure you're well organized so that you have your hard drive in. And once you start your projects, you want to make sure that you're using a hard drive and have easy to find the files that you're going to look for, and make sure all of your video files are actually in folders that you can just very easily move over. And that way you can actually keep things quite organized. And there's your new project. There's nothing in there yet, but you want to start with kind of an empty folder where there's not a lot of stuff around in that. So that's where we're going to save it. Okay, then the next thing you do is you got to open Premiere. It takes a little bit of time to start, and you start with new project. Now, what's really important to do is that you save your project actually in your hard drive and not on the desktop, because you might want to move this project around, and so you have to have it available with you. The other thing is once you have all your movie files and things like that, don't move them at all. Keep them one place, because once you move them, what's going to happen is that the program that you're using won't be able to find them. So always keep all of your, let's say, movie clips, photos, whatever you're going to use, every single file, leave it in the same folder at all times. So make sure it's all organized before then. So we're just going to browse where we're going to put this. It's going to be in the passport there, and it's going to be in new project. So you can choose that, and you should title it something. So we're going to call it demo. That's kind of a boring title, but that's what we're going to call it. Your capture format should be HDV if that's what you're using, but you should know beforehand what kind of files you're using. And hopefully all of your video files should be of the same type. You don't want to mix and match them too much. All right, so there you start. Okay, here you have actually your working screen, and there's several things that you want to look at here. This is the screen where you'll be able to see what your video is, and this is your timeline, and it's here on the timeline that you actually put all the video clips and things like that. In this little box, this is your bin. It's not just the bin where it says project demo. That's your bin. That's where you put all of your folders. There's your media browser, so you can actually look stuff up through there, but I think it's better just to dump things into the bin. The one other thing that I want you to find here is the effects, because we won't be doing effects today, but at some point you want to know where all of the effects are, and that's where they are. And up here, at this point, there's only two folders that I want you to look at. This is actually where you do a lot of your effect controls and things like that. It's the source of the clips. So when you double click on something, you will actually see the clips up here and your effect controls. The other things I'm not going to worry about at this point. And the one other thing is the window that you want it in, the workspace, you want it to be editing at this point. You can start using others. You'll see that there's things like you'll have effects, you'll have audio, assembly, color. The easiest to manipulate is actually the editing, so just keep it in there, but you're free on your own to start exploring around. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're first going to drag in some clips. Now, I've changed a little bit the format of the screen so that the writing is a little bit bigger, so you can actually, in the back there, maybe you can see it. Hopefully you can. Okay, so, but unfortunately what happens is these screens here are just a little bit smaller and you can't do as much with it. And normally I use a different kind of setting for my own when I'm doing video, but this is just so that you can see it. Okay, so let's start, and we're going to go to our demo, and what I've got there, I've nicely marked all of the video folders that I'm going to use with these red dots, and I'm just actually going to randomly select videos. I'm not going to do anything that looks good. I'm just simply going to show you what the tools are and actually how to use them. So I've got 4 folders here, video clips that we're going to look at, and here I'll put the videos in first. And I also want to put photos in there. But the one thing is you may want to determine how long you want each one to be before you put them in. And this is particularly important when you're doing animation. So I'm just going to close this for a moment and go into preferences, and you go into general. And then right here you could see the still image default duration. That means if you drop them into the bin there, they're all going to be 0.09 seconds long, which is very, very short. I think if you're doing really, really smooth animation, that's quite good. And it's particularly when you're doing animation, you want to find this out. But I just may want to use the photos as photos. So I'm just going to change that to about 1.9 seconds. That would be fine. And let me get this back again. So I'm going to take the photos copy of. So now I have a bit of work. So what I want you to look at here are actually the various tools that we've got on here. This one here is the selection tool, and I'm going to start just with 3, and then I'll later show you some of the others, but these are the 3 most important. That's your selection tool, that's your razor tool, and that's your pen tool. And with some of them, you'll see kind of like the razor tool has a C and the selection tool has a V. So you just have to kind of press C, V, and I think P for that one, and they automatically come up. But I'm just going to just keep clicking them as I do this demo here. Okay, the next thing that you want to do is you want to actually open one of the folders, and you just double click to open it, and then you'll see the video clips that come up. And it gives you the date, it gives you how long each one is. And you're first going to want to put them in the source bin here so you can actually kind of crop them just a little bit roughly. So you just double click on it and it will show up there. So here you see it, and you can very easily kind of just glide through it and see what you want. Now, you could just select a little bit of it. And let's say I just want from this point, what I would do is I would just click this thing that says mark in, and it will mark it in. And I just want it to there, and that says mark out. So when you put this onto the timeline, it will only drag that part. Now on the timeline, you can actually drag it longer again because the original file is still there, but I just want that one little part of it. And in fact, I may want it a little bit shorter. So you just click and drag it onto the timeline. And there it will go. And then once it's actually on the timeline, you're going to see here these various, the V's and the A's. The V lines, those are video, and the A's, those are the audio. And you'll see here the lighter blue is the video and the darker blue is the audio. And there's your selection tool. And if you want to do anything to anything that's on the timeline, you just have to click on it. Now you noticed that when I clicked, both the video and the audio lit up. That's because I have this clicked with, which is the link selection. If you unclick it, and then you click just one of them, let's say I have to unclick it, then just one will highlight. And that's useful to know in case you just want to operate on one of the 2 parts of the video. Generally, you want to keep them linked up, particularly if you're cutting them and things like that. Now, you can't see your entire clip here, so down below here's your zoom tool. You can kind of zoom right in to a single frame if you want, or you can kind of zoom out. Okay, so right now I've got one thing on the timeline, and then you just have to press play or click the space button, and it plays. There we go. Now I want to get some other clips in there, and I want to kind of put them in a variety of ways. Now, this here is your cursor, and it's really important to remember where your cursor is, because if you click copy and paste, it's going to paste it exactly where that cursor is, right there. So always remember where your cursor is, and using your direction keys, you can actually move the up and down ones, move it an entire chunk, and the other ones, the side to side ones, move it actually just one frame at a time. So if I want to add something to this, I make sure it's right at the end of that. And so when I go up here to add something else, then it will put it exactly there. Now, I'm first of all just going to take a little bit more of this, maybe a little bit more fire, and I'll just do a mark in. You can also do mark in and out just with the letter I and O. And it's much easier just to use the key shortcuts, but you can't always see what I'm doing. But there, I just press the I and it's selecting that. Now, there are these buttons down here that you can actually use to insert the video into the timeline. So think about again where the cursor is. And if you want to actually drop it, insert it so it moves apart the other clips, then you click that one and you can just see I'll click that and it inserts it right there. But I want to undo it, just do Command Z, that undoes it. Let's say I want to put it in front of there and I press the insert, it will actually push the other one over. That's kind of important to know. But if I actually want to overwrite something, let's say halfway through here, I want to insert the other clip and have it wipe out the existing one, I just press that. You can see that it actually plunks it right down in the middle there. So I'll drag this along a little. You can just see it'll be right there in the middle. And suddenly I've got that other clip there, and I may decide, whoops, I kind of made a big mistake, and I don't necessarily want to undo it. So here's one of the things that I could do. I could just click on that one and I could delete it, and you think, oh no, I've got a big space in here again. So I could just actually delete this one also, and I could take my selection tool and just, you'll see where there's that little arrow pointing back. I could just drag it along and get my original file again. There you go. And it's a whole piece once more. Now, I'm just going to, this one, I'm just going to insert at the end. If it's at the end, whether you do overwrite or stop really makes no difference. So there you go. Now, what I might want to do is, there's this other editing tool here, and it's called the Ripple Edit tool, which is really quite useful if you want to kind of expand, get back some of the old footage, like let's say this clip here, I want to expand it again. I can actually expand it and it will push the smaller clip out of the way. I'll just show you here. Oh, got the wrong one there. You have to make sure you really click it. There you go. And you'll see that the arrow is pointing to the left. Now, if I drag this over, it'll just nicely push the other one over. Now, if you actually just want to overwrite, and let's say I want to take this one and I actually want to overwrite the previous one, you'd use the rolling edit tool. That one I could click on here and I could roll it this way, and it will just actually overwrite the previous clip.